Welcome
to Rifle River Recreation Area. Try saying that 3 times fast.
Rifle River State Recreation Area is located in northeastern Lower Michigan, so in the Lower Peninsula, northeast side.
Somewhere up here.
Somewhere up in there. And it's decent size. It's 4,400 acres. 4,100 acres are open to hunting at certain times of the year, so something to be aware of. But in addition to that, for hunters, there's a ton of stuff out here for everybody else in terms of trails, lakes, all kinds of outdoor stuff.
Yeah, fishing is actually a big thing here, although I think some of it's catch and release, or most of it's catch and release. But in the state park map, they actually give you a whole page specifically on which types of fish can be found in which of the 10 lakes that are on this property.
They do define them as lakes and ponds because they're very different sizes. We have some. There's one that's like just over an acre, so I'm assuming that's one of the ponds.
Yeah.
But there's one of the lakes that goes up to 130 acres, so that's good size and allows you to get out there on different kinds of boats, kayaks, canoes. People have all kinds of watercraft here today that we saw. Water devices.
I did notice, yes, there were a lot of people, a lot of kayakers. That is a big thing here, a lot of kayaking. Because most of the lakes I believe we saw said no motors. So definitely an easy place to get out with a kayak or a canoe, something small. We saw a lot of trumpeter swans and other waterfowl. Saw a lot of trumpeter swans and other waterfowl and things out there. So definitely a good place to kind of get out there and just see what's out there. Also, the Rifle River runs through the park, which is what the park is named for. And that is also another place. It is one of the few rivers it says that has no dams on it. So not only is it good for the fish for spawning, but it is good for you as a water enthusiast if you want to get in and kayak or canoe down.
Yeah, there was a note that said that the fish are able to travel all the way to and from Lake Huron through the Rifle River and up through the system because there are no dams on it. It's one of the few that's left in Michigan like that. Speaking of kayaks and canoes and things you want to do, one thing to keep in mind here is this is a big park and things are really spread out from the campgrounds to the different lakes to places to launch your canoes and your kayaks and different things to do. So you're going to be driving if you have any kind of equipment. And we were talking about how it's actually a great park if you have a setup with a pickup truck, for example, where you can drop your trailer or your truck camper or something, and then you use your truck to haul your equipment for the day out to a lake that you want to go to or check out a pond. It'll be a really good setup for this park.
Well, specifically because, as we found, most of the roads are gravel, and many of them are not in great condition. They definitely feel more like off-roading, four-wheel drive type places. I mean, we took the Jeep out to go to sightseeing, and I definitely found a few water holes, mud holes, a lot of just dips in the road where that's the stuff I'm used to in the Jeep. But if you're not used to that kind of road conditions, you could be in for a surprise out here. And a couple of the roads are one way. So you do have to know that if you head up there, you got to keep going basically, because they're one way, really narrow, dirt and mud in certain times of the year, depending on the rainy season.
Yeah, one way, one lane. There's one lane bridges that we went over. And, you mentioned you'd be surprised. Well, there is one road at the end of the park here, basically, that says not suitable for motorhomes or vehicles with trailers. And we took the Jeep down there just to have some fun. But there are other roads that are just considered unimproved roads in the park. And some of those ended up being, a lot of dips and holes and kind of gullies in them. And so I was surprised. There are places that, if I don't see the sign on the other one, I wouldn't take the road track down it because I'm not going to put that through that. Some of the unimproved roads, if they're not signed that way, I would probably...
We would have just gone.
I would explore with the road track, and I'm glad we did, and I'm glad we had the Jeep today to go check those out because that's not a road I would normally have taken my rig down.
When it comes to trails, there's over 14 miles in this park, and that covers everything from hiking, biking, and cross-country skiing in the winter. There are field trails that are just skiing and hiking only, but the vast majority of the trails are multi-use, including biking. And it goes all the way through the park. So there's a lot to see and do here. In different times of the year, they say to be on the lookout for certain things like Indian paintbrushes, which is a type of flower, or different wildlife that you might see in different times of the year. So this is this would be another one of those parks where you want to come at different times of the year, different seasons, to see what's sprouting or has just been born, I guess.
Yeah, and speaking of different seasons, we're here on Memorial Day weekend. It's been a little bit rainy. We're right near a river here in our campsite, which we got a great campsite in one of the rustic loops that they have here. But make sure you have bug spray with you. Make sure you have something that can deal with the bugs. We have a thermocell unit that we use. It works pretty well. You know, it's just something to be prepared for depending on the time of year that you're here.
Within the 4,500 acres here at Rifle River Recreation Area are a number of different campsite opportunities. You can either have the modern campground, which is located on Grouse Haven Lake. There are 75 sites, and it is mostly open grassy with a few trees, but it is right on the lake if that is something that you're interested in. There are also 3 rustic campgrounds, and one is located right on the Rifle River, one is located on DeVoe Lake, and one is located in a big open wide grassy field. So depending on the kind of style of camping that you want or the type of rig that you own, you've got a number of different options. Additionally, there are a few, I think 4 or 5 rustic cabins that are also available for rent. So if you don't own your own tent or trailer, or you just don't feel like taking those out, you've got those options, and those are really secluded. They're all behind locked gates, and so you'd have a lot of privacy if you get one of the cabins. One thing to keep in mind is that the modern campground is relatively close to the entrance of the park, but the rustic campgrounds and the cabins are all 2 to 3 miles into the park a ways down a dirt road. And just something to keep in mind. It's nothing that you can't handle, but you just want to go slow on your way there. The Rifle River Recreation Area was created as a state park in 1963. It was actually purchased by the state in 1945, but was used solely for a fish and other wildlife research area for quite a few years. The previous owner was H.M. Jewett, who was the owner of the Page Detroit Car Company and who the Jewett automobile is named after. This was his private hunting and fishing retreat area, and so he had a lodge, he had a lot of other things up here, and after he died, his widow sold it to the state. We've seen that quite often. I mean, it seems like we've said before, the automobile magnates in the state really kind of played a role in the conservation efforts and what helped shape our state parks as we know them.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting park when you look at what we saw in terms of the trails into the woods, by the river, all of the different lakes. It's easy to see why the state used this place as a research facility, essentially for 20-some years for waterfowl and for fishing and everything else to do their research, because you've got a lot of sort of marsh and swampland as the river kind of meanders through. So easy to see why they used it for that. In some places in northern lower Michigan, you can still find old growth white pine trees. This guy's been here a while.
Much longer than most of us. I'm a tree hugger. Kind of hard to hug a tree that's twice as big around you.
As state parks go, the Rifle River State Recreation Area is one where if you can afford to spend some time here, I'd recommend it. Find a way to maybe camp here and spend a few days exploring.
For sure. This is one where you're definitely going to want your bike, a kayak if you have one, or they do have some rentals available, and your hiking shoes, because there's a lot of different trails and a lot of different bodies of water to just get out and explore.
So you could either spend a jam-packed weekend here or take the time and camp for a week and really get out and explore all 4,500 acres that are out here.
So keep on trekking, and we'll see you out there.